Hey guys, welcome back to this short cooking series, a series of 9 episodes total. On the last episode, we talked everything about equipment, all the equipment that you're going to see me use all throughout this short series. We talked about all the little stuff. We also talked about how to start up a brand new grill. We talked about how to properly clean up a grill. We talked about maintenance. We talked about all that stuff. So there's going to be a link in the show notes down below this episode, so you could go back and take a look at that. It's also a breakdown of cost of everything too. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about brisket, everything brisket. It's something that I get a lot of questions about. It's much easier to just put this video together, and I'm going to walk you through everything that I'm doing with a brisket from beginning to end. So this is going to be a longer episode. Like I said, this is going to be all-inclusive, meaning that I'm going to show you the rotation of brisket that I typically cook, because I do regularly cook brisket as a part of our meal prep. It's a, when you go and pick out a brisket, a lot of people have a lot of reservations about the price of a brisket. Like, holy cow, this thing's $100, or whatever it is. Look at the price per pound. The price per pound, okay? It's a lot less expensive than other cuts, and for good reason. It requires a lot more knowledge and a lot more technique to actually pull off a brisket. Okay, so I'm going to show you the rotation that I cook brisket, and the rotation is smoke, crock pot, okay? The first brisket that we're going to cook is a little bit thinner brisket, so you'll know what to do with a little bit thinner brisket. The next one is a little bit thicker brisket, okay? It's going to require a little bit more trim, a little bit more care. And then the third brisket, which is done in the crock pot, is going to be done in the, it's going to be done in the crock pot, and that's all the trimmings, okay? So sometimes there's a question, what do I do with all the trimmings? Don't throw it away. Don't throw any of that stuff away, okay? And that includes the fat, because I'm going to walk you through how to make tallow. Tallow is something that people use to describe just the rendered down fat, okay? Technically, tallow is a very specific fat from a very specific place on the cow, but that's not how we're using the word tallow here, okay? So the last cook, the crock pot cook, is going to be 2 crock pots going at the same time, one of them with the meat trimmings, and the other crock pot is just going to be fat, okay? So we're going to walk through all that. This is going to be a little bit longer episode. The other episodes in the future that are coming up here, they aren't going to be nearly as long, but there's a lot to talk about with brisket, okay? So we want to make sure that this is a thorough, you walk away with a thorough understanding of what to do with the brisket, so that every time you cook a brisket, it's really, really good, and you'll impress all your friends, you'll impress your family. And if it's not for your friends and family, you'll have really good brisket in the fridge or in the freezer, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the cooking schedule. I'm going to go ahead and put up the cooking schedule right now so you can take a look at it. This is the cooking schedule that we're going to be using. And as you can see, it's a 12-hour cook. Okay, there are some videos out there that talk about, well, you can cut a corner here, you can cut a corner there. You can. And you're more than welcome to try that. For me, this is the best way to get a really good render on the fat and all the connective tissue in a brisket, okay? So there's a couple of different things going on inside of a brisket. This is the reason why it's a cheaper cut, okay? There's a lot of connective tissue that needs to be rendered down and turned into essentially like a collagen. And then there's the fat itself that needs to be rendered down as well. But at the same time, you don't want to cook the heck out of it, because the meat inside, if you overcook it, it'll be dry. And in some situations, you'll end up with, depending on how you do it, you'll end up with super dry meat but a really good render on the fat and the connective tissue, or you end up with kind of vice versa. Okay, so the cooking schedule is important above all. It's more important than the seasoning too. You watch enough. If you watch enough of these videos out there, out in the YouTube universe, you'll find a bunch of people who are really smitten with their seasoning combo and all that. Look, traditional Texas barbecue is done with salt and pepper. Okay, it's all about technique. Technique is everything. Okay, that's what makes it kind of difficult to pull off sometimes. But the hope here is to reduce your learning curve so that you can get straight to making really good brisket. And then you can start toying around with seasonings and find out what your preferences are. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to stop talking here. Let's get out to the table and let's start cooking. All right, everybody, this is brisket number one. This is a prime brisket just from Costco. This is 13 pounds. What I chose to do with this brisket when I selected it is I chose one that didn't have a massive point. Okay, this is the point, this is the flat. And the reason why is to minimize the trim. So when you cook these briskets, if you can, you'd like to have a brisket that when you put it on the grill, it doesn't come up to a massive point and have and on this side have a bunch of this kind of stuff. It's thin over here. There's some irregularities. Actually, we'll just put that straight in the trim. You want this to be relatively smooth. So this is gonna be, we're gonna have a little bit of trim here. We're gonna trim off some of the fat and stuff like that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start trimming this right now. This is kind of what I was talking about before. So I chose one on purpose for minimal trim. Okay, so we have the fat side over here, and then the other side over here. We've got a massive piece of fat right here. We're gonna go straight into the trim right now. Okay, massive piece of fat right here. And we're just gonna start trimming this away. Okay. And we're not gonna get real crazy about it. This is a home cook. This isn't competition brisket. We're after just a good quality meal, okay? So we're taking off all this irregular stuff to have something that's overall relatively consistent in shape. Now there's not a whole lot of not a whole lot to do over here. A lot of people would start trimming off and get real fussy with all this stuff on the back. I don't bother doing that. So if you feel like you want to get extra fussy and try and get all this other kind of stuff, go ahead. I'm not doing that here. Essentially what you could do with a brisket is just take this entire brisket and put it straight on the grill if you wanted to. That doesn't mean it's the thing to do. The best thing to do is to, again, make sure that you have something that is a relatively even shape. So we can see right here, this portion of this meat, this is very thin. This isn't gonna cook the same as something this thick, okay? So we're gonna end up getting rid of this. We'll go ahead and get rid of that right now. Okay, this goes into the trim, and we'll go over the trim in just a bit. Okay, so now we're gonna turn this guy over. Okay, and on this side, you can see a great big lump of fat right there. Okay, we're gonna start trimming this so that we have a relatively even distribution of fat. We want somewhere around 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. That's what we want. And this kind of stuff right here, you see this? You can grab it like this. We want this off of there, okay? Right into the trim. Okay. Right into the trim. Okay, and now we're gonna start on the fat. Okay. In the meantime, while I'm trimming this up, I should mention a couple things. I have the grill outside the Traeger. It's already on smoke right now. So it's out there starting to warm up. This part of the trim is not going to take very long. Okay, so when I'm done with this, I'll put it straight on there. And then the grill will then go to 250 degrees. And then that will be cooking. Okay, so we can see, look at this great big piece of fat. Okay, we're gonna go over the trim in just a minute, and we're gonna show you, don't throw this away. This is gonna get turned into tallow. Okay, so we're gonna keep right on trucking. Okay, and something else I'm gonna mention, okay, and I'm gonna do this on purpose. Okay, so you're gonna see an irregularity in how I trim this. I'm doing this on purpose for a reason. A lot of folks that you listen to, they get real fussy, and they're gonna say, oh, you wanna make sure that it's this exact amount of fat all over the place. Okay, I'm gonna show you by example that if it's a little bit inconsistent, I'm just gonna do this. Actually, I'm gonna go a little bit quicker just to make sure, to prove my point. Okay, I could be doing this a lot more carefully, but I'm not. Okay, and this looks like a hack job. Look at that hack job. Doesn't that look horrible? Doesn't that look horrible? I'm not gonna go real crazy with the hack job, but I wanna do this to prove a point. This is not competition barbecue. Competition barbecue is something else. It's a different kind of perfection that doesn't matter here. Okay, so all right. Now I want to make sure that, in addition to proving my point, that it's relatively even. I don't want great big lumps of fat all over the place. That's not really what we're trying to communicate. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna turn this guy around. Now, this looks like a little bit of a hack job. The reason why I did this is because I don't want you to be afraid or intimidated by the trim. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay that it's a little bit inconsistent. It's not gonna affect the cook. Okay, so now I'm just gonna take maybe some of the little stuff that's kind of sticking up that would turn into something that's extra crispy and all that. Okay, so this is relatively even. Okay, but maybe because I'm new with the knife, or I'm new with this particular type of cut, new to brisket or something like that, I've made some mistakes. I'm gonna leave these mistakes here on purpose. We're just gonna continue to cook this. Okay, so like I said, I chose this particular brisket. Okay, and this is from Costco. There are much more reputable places that you can get a brisket and stuff like that. This is from Costco. Okay, the point of this is to prove that when it comes to brisket, you should just jump in. Okay, so I'm not going to trim this anymore. This is done. As far as I'm concerned, for what we're talking about today, this is done. Okay, so now I'm going to go straight into seasoning. So I'm gonna flip this over, and the reason why I'm gonna flip this over is I'm gonna put the seasoning on this side first because this side is gonna go down on the grill, okay? I cook with the fat side up. Okay, so I'm gonna clean my hand just a little bit. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves. The reason why I'm wearing gloves is because I'm gonna be using mustard, okay? Yellow mustard. Yellow mustard is really annoying because it can get in between where your fingernail gets into your finger, and it can stain inside your finger and all that other kind of stuff. I just want to stay clean. Okay, so I'm going to start in with the mustard. Okay, this is my binder. You don't have to use a binder. You can use water, you can use nothing. I'm using mustard because I like it. It has a little bit of an effect on the flavor, but not much. So we're going to go ahead and start spreading this. Spread it on the edges. Okay, this doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that. We're getting messy here. We're getting messy. You spread this around real good. Okay, and now this is the seasoning that I'm using. This is Kingsford Original. I got this at Winco. I've used all kinds of other seasonings and all that other kind of stuff. I use this both for beef and pork. Okay, so later on, we're going to talk about pork butt. This is what I'm using for both. Okay, so I'm going to start with the edges. I'm going to go real liberal with the seasoning, real liberal. Okay, those who are new to cooking big cuts like this on a grill will go, oh my God, you can't even see the meat. Yeah, that's true. But the reason why you want to do this is because the seasoning on the outside is needed for the meat that's on the inside when you're eating. Okay, so we're gonna go real liberal with all this. Real liberal, look at that. Okay, we got a real nice color on it everywhere. Okay, and now we're gonna flip it over. Now you notice that I'm keeping one hand clean. And the reason why that is this is what I'm using to touch this stuff, okay? So if you can have a dirty hand, have a clean hand. Okay. I got some mustard here, this side, last side. Rub it in real good. Okay, that's looking real good. And we're running out. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is grab my other seasoning. Okay, and I just went and grabbed my next one because it just ran out. Same thing, we're gonna go real liberal. This is almost ready to go on. Look at that color. Okay. Make sure everything is covered. Where a lot of people screw this up is that they don't season it enough. Part of the flavor comes from the fat render itself, but if you don't have enough seasoning on there, you're gonna regret it. Okay, so we're ready. Okay, now I'm gonna use my probe. This is a Wi-Fi probe. It's really important to use a probe that communicates with your phone. I only use probes that communicate with the phone. This one's Wi-Fi. I have another set that is Bluetooth. This one I use if I'm leaving the house, then this still communicates with me off of an app. I can be out and about and not have to worry about what temperature it is. I can check it wherever I'm at. Okay, so I'm gonna set this kind of where the point meets the flat. Again, point, flat, okay? When we start cooking this, or when we start cutting this, I'm gonna explain a little bit more about the difference between the point and the flat, and the reason why when you start cutting this stuff, you have to start cutting it differently once you go from here to here and then here to here. This has to rotate because of the grain of the meat. We're gonna talk about that in a bit. For right now, this is ready to go on the grill. It's going on at 250, and it's gonna be on there for 6 hours. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock in the morning right now. I'm gonna continue to monitor this through the thermometer. When this reaches 165, again, it's roughly 12 o'clock, but the goal is 165, not the amount of time. Okay, so we're gonna put this on the grill right now. So the brisket's on the grill. Now we have these trimmings that we've got to deal with that, like I said before, we're keeping. And the reason why we want to keep that is because we're going to turn that into this. We're going to render the fat down. We're going to separate the meat. We're going to have another cook with the meat. Explain that in just a second. But this is what we want. This is beef tallow, rendered down fat that we can use for cooking French fries, cooking whatever it is you're gonna fry. You can season your grill with it. You can do all kinds of stuff with that, okay? So very important to keep all this stuff, all your trimmings, and then we're gonna walk through how to separate the meat and what we're gonna do next. This is the other rendered down fat I've got. After that brisket comes off, it's gonna have a bunch of drippings and all that stuff. Keep that too. And the reason why you want to keep that too is because you can separate, it will separate once you put all the drippings in a jar, put it in the fridge, the fat will rise to the top, and that's what this is. This is just the fat. So same kind of a thing, you can cook with this stuff, it's awesome to cook with, and you can season your grill with it as well. This is what I use to season my grill. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside. So now we have all of our trimmings, and what we need to do is clean up the fat. You want nice clean fat when you render it down. So you have little bits of meat and stuff like that. We're just gonna, be patient. Get that meat off of there. Now that's clean fat. Meat over here, little bits of meat over here, fat over here. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna separate all this stuff out. Okay. Now the stuff that goes into the meat pile, that doesn't have to be perfect. There's obviously a little bit of fat on there. That's no big deal. But the fat, you want all the meat off the fat so that it's just fat. Now we have this bigger piece. This is pretty easy. There's really no meat on it, right? Take this off. Put that in with the meat. Over with the fat. So this right here, this has got a little bit of fat on it. This is not worth fussing over to try and pull the fat off. This, we're just going to piece up. Okay, just kind of like that. For our second cook, or for our third cook rather, our third cook is just going to be trimmings. It's going to be done in the crock pot. Okay, so we're already coming down to the end. of our trimmings. Okay, this is pretty quick. The next one will be a little bit more. So we got off easy this time, that's good. Okay. Fat. Yeah, a little bit of meat there. Okay, so we've got our meat pile. That is ready and already cut up. This is ready to go into a freezer bag and get set aside for the next brisket. The next brisket's trimmings will go with these for the third cook. The last thing to do, what I like to do, this is gonna get rendered down in a crock pot as well. We're gonna have 2 crock pots for the third cook. All we're gonna do is just cut this into reasonable size strips. Let's put that guy over there. Okay. So these are all just gonna be little pieces. You don't want great big slabs of fat when you render this down, because it's not quite as easy to render. It takes a little bit longer. It doesn't render as evenly. These little pieces are much easier to manage. Okay, this isn't an exact science, just cut it up into pieces, reasonable sizes, like so. Okay, I'm going kind of fast. And the reason why is, like I said, it's not an exact science. You don't have to get, you know, super technical about it or anything like that. Okay. Got that big piece there. Couple little pieces there. Okay. Strips, strips, strips. And this big old piece. Okay, and now you've got a great big pile of just nice, clean fat with no meat. Same thing, freezer bag with this, and this will get all set aside and put with the trimmings for the next brisket coming up. All right, so it's about 11 o'clock. In about an hour or so, the brisket's gonna be ready to come off. It's gonna be about 165. It's gonna need to get pulled, wrapped, and then get put back in. A lot of people use paper, butcher paper. I don't. I use foil, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and prepare this foil. This is the way that I do it. If you want to do it another way, feel free. But I'm going to fold both of these together. This is going to be a seam right here. So this will be at the bottom. This will be underneath the brisket when we pull it. I want it to be tight. Okay, I don't want leakage. The main reason why I do foil and I don't do butcher paper is because I save all the drippings. Okay, I alluded to that when we talked about the trim. I'm gonna show you what I do with the drippings at the end of the second cook, and I'm gonna explain how I cut it. Okay, so right now we need to create essentially a vessel for everything to sit in. Okay, so that's the seam. And I'm going to form this to this dish. Like This is going to make everything much easier. When we pull it and wrap it, it's going to be very fast because it needs to be fast. I'm going to be careful when I do this. Okay, this is a lot like, you know, putting a pie crust in a pie tin. But the reason why I want to be careful, I don't want to tear. Create a tear, then it leaks. We don't want to leak. Okay, so for right now, I'm just gonna create a little fold on the ends just so it's easier to walk around. But I'm gonna take this out when that brisket's ready to pull. I'm gonna take this out next to the grill, open up the grill, place the brisket right inside here. I'm gonna wrap it up real tight, and I'll show you how that works in just a minute. So we're at 165 internal temperature on this brisket. We're ready to pull it, wrap it, and then we're gonna put it back. So you wanna be pretty quick about it. It's pretty hot. Right in there, okay? And what I'm doing, I'm gonna pull this a little bit tighter. I want some good contact with that foil, okay? I'm gonna come up the middle. Do this wrap. Okay, now on the ends, I'm gonna wrap it just like this. This makes a little handle. So when you pull it the next time, you'll have something to easily grip on. Okay, this goes back in. And we'll see you back when we reach an internal temperature of 204. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. So we've reached the critical temperature of 204 degrees. Now we're gonna pull this, we're gonna set it in that dish right here. First I'm gonna unplug my probe. Grab this thing by the handles that I made with the tin foil. Carefully. You gotta be careful not to rip as you pull that brisket out of there. Rip the tin foil, okay? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna rehook up our probe, and now we're gonna let this set out, slow down the cooking process, almost stop the cooking process, get it down to 185 degrees. After 185 degrees, we're gonna move to the cooler. All right, so our brisket's at 185. We're ready to go into the cooler for the last couple of hours. This is a total of 12 hours from beginning to end. We started at 6 o'clock in the morning. It'll be done and ready to serve at 6 p.m. It's about 4 o'clock right now, a little bit less than 4 o'clock. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in the grill. It's at 185 right now. I like to have the brisket somewhere around 144 when you're ready to serve. If it's a little bit above that, that's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in right now. First, in the cooler, I'm gonna have this towel here. This isn't necessary, but I like to do it. Put that guy on the bottom. This is something I do, especially if I'm taking this brisket to somebody else's house or something. Okay, put this in. Take this towel here, set it on top. Probe is still in there just so that I can monitor the temperature. Close this up, set it on top. And this is good to set until you reach 144, okay? We're gonna go over the cutting and what to do with all the drippings and all that stuff on the next brisket. So let's get on over to the next brisket. All right, guys, brisket number 2. This guy here, this is a 19-pound brisket. And as you can see, it's got a little bit different shape to it. It kind of ramps up here. It's got a little bit extra stuff right here, quite a bit more fat. Okay, on the trim on this one, we've got a little bit more work to do on the first brisket. Okay, so let's go ahead and start carving. Okay, the first thing that we know is that any sort of big lumps that start coming off, we want to try and get rid of that. We want something that is a relative shape. That's what we're after, okay? So we're gonna just start getting rid of this, okay? And this right here, we can see this right here is just one great big lump of fat right here, okay? So I'm gonna, just for my ease, I'm gonna turn this guy around a little bit, okay? Yeah, just like that. Now, I'm just gonna start carving this guy away. Okay, this one I'm gonna take my time a little bit. Okay, like we talked about before, we want something like 1/4 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch, something like that, of fat on top. I'm just kind of taking little bites out of this. Just right here at the edge. Yeah, we're looking good here. Got a little bit of a ramp here. See, we got a little mohawk going on here. Let's go ahead and take that guy off. Yeah. I mentioned in the previous video that if you make a mistake, you know, don't fret. Just keep working. It's got no effect on the flavor if you go a little bit deep here, like here and here. I'm trying not to do that too much on this one. You know, before I wanted to kind of prove a point that you should be confident in this, and don't worry too much about making mistakes and stuff like that. Sometimes you can get the impression by listening to the pros, which I'm not. You can get this impression that it's super important and all that stuff, and it kind of is. You want to have meat that's looks nice and also tastes wonderful, but if you make a mistake, it's fine. You'll get better and better over time with this, guys. Big piece of fat right here. Okay. No need to go too fast. It's not a race. You don't want your blade flying around and, you know, risk cutting yourself or anything like that because you're in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Just take your time. of the things I wanted to mention as well is the presentation of this. Okay, if you listen to the pros that compete with their brisket and all that, they're going to tell you that getting this right is very important for the presentation and all that stuff. Guys, the reason why that's so important is their submission is inside a little box. They only have a few pieces of meat in there to make a really good impression on the judges. That's just not the situation here, okay? This is already, when this comes off, okay, when we skip ahead to the future, you're gonna see this when it's all done and we're gonna get ready to start cutting. You're gonna see that this is already gonna look incredible. Okay, so this part doesn't have to be super perfect for all of us that aren't competing with our brisket. We're cooking for our families, we're cooking for our friends, cooking for ourselves. So the key to this, the thing that we're really concerned about is the flavor. It's gonna look really good on its own regardless. And during the trim, if you start running into little stuff like this, you're barely gonna notice it when we're done. Okay, you're gonna see that here in a bit when we do the carving. Okay, so like I said, don't beat yourself up too bad if you cut down into the meat and oh geez, I made a mistake. Well, that's fine. That's fine for everyone, for everyone else. Okay. This isn't going to be perfect. We're just looking for roughly 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch-ish. Okay. And already I'm going to start cutting around. Okay, so we got if I flip this guy over, we've got some sort of gray meat here. This has to do with when you see this on a brisket, that doesn't mean that it's bad meat. It's undesirable. We're gonna trim this away, but do you have to? Is it bad? No. What this essentially means is this section here has been kind of sitting in water or something like that over a period of time. Okay, that's kind of what that means. Just for our sake, we're just going to trim that away. Okay, so I'm going to trim that out right now. Okay, and now we can see everything else. Okay, this is going to go away here too. This and all the way up here is just a little bit gray. It's not bad, we just don't want to see it, so we're going to get rid of it. Okay, now we've got this great big right here, this lump of fat right here. I'm going to turn this around so that it's on my side. I don't want that blade swinging around in empty space. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of pull it apart a little bit. We can see a little bit of, we get a little bit of space right here. Just take the tip and just kind of tease it apart a little bit. Okay. Same thing here. Okay. Now we're ready to make an actual cut. just gonna carve this guy right off. Okay, and we still got a big, good sized lump of fat right here. Let's go ahead and get some more off of there. We don't need that much fat just hanging out like that. Right here. Okay, looking good. Okay, now this one, if we just kind of tease this apart a little bit, we've got a little bit more fat than we did on the first one, the last one we just looked at. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of take this off. We've got plenty of fat on this brisket, guys. So there is such a thing as too much, I think. If you're super into having a lot of fat on your brisket, then, you know, all power to you. But I think there is such a thing as striking a good balance. Okay, and I'm just using the tip of this blade right near the meat. Doing a little bit of a pull. Okay, out we go. All right. Same thing here. Okay, we got a bunch of little bits here. Maybe I think we can take this little bit off here. Okay. Now I would call this a relatively equal distribution here on this end. We'll hop over here. Okay, and I'm just kind of pulling it up with my finger, just pinching my fingers together. Okay. Just like that. And the same thing here. Just work the tip. Okay. Looks like we got a little vein of fat right there. Just draw a line. I guess it wasn't too deep, that's okay. Looking good, looking good. Okay, we've got this. We don't want a whole lot of little bits like this, okay? We kind of talked about that before. That can turn into, little places where it can not really burn, but you know, this is going in the smoker for an extended period of time, so that could turn into some kind of unpleasant bits where it just kind of turns into a little knob of charcoal. Okay, so anything that's just kind of like hanging out like this, any kind of, you know, big bits, the little ones, that's fine. When we put the rub on, that'll even out. No big deal. I think we could stand to take a little bit more of this out. Okay. I like to, if I can, remove quite a bit of this little section right here. Okay, so something we haven't really talked about is what a brisket is. This is kind of like if you imagine the pectoral of a cow. That's essentially kind of what this is. And this is two muscles together. Two muscles. This is one right here. You can see the grain of the meat going in this direction here, and it's separated with this line of fat. And it runs in between, kind of like a sandwich. Okay, so where this sort of seam comes together, right back here, there can be quite a bit of fat. It can be off-putting, so I just go ahead and I trim the heck out of it. Okay, so we're at the stage now we can start shaping the meat. Okay, we're working on the point right now. Okay. Looking good there. I'm gonna flip this guy over. And on the last one, this section right here, it came down to a really flat, thin section right here on the flat. The side's the flat, the side's the point. It's really not the case that there's really not that much of that going on here. It's actually pretty uniform, which is great. We're gonna trim this off regardless, because we don't want this. We don't want this separation. Like I said, this turns into bits over time. We don't want that. Okay, we want a relatively, I guess, aerodynamic type of a shape when it's in that grill. Okay, so that's kind of what we're after here. I'll turn this guy around so now you can kind of see this is kind of what we're after. Okay, and while I'm back here, I'm going to take off this little triangle right here, just so that we're a little bit smoother. Okay, I already know that this isn't going to work out for me, so I'm going to take this off and then shape that corner there. Shape this corner right here. Okay, so now I have something that's kind of an oval of a relative shape. We're a little bit thicker here on the point side than on brisket 1. We knew that going in. This is a bigger brisket. Okay, let's turn this over and give it one final look. Okay, I like it. I've got a little bit of extra stuff back here that I don't really care for. I don't want to see. Okay, so we're going to come in here now and start taking this off. Okay, anything that comes up to kind of like a mohawk, we'll just get that guy out. Okay. Okay. While I'm doing this, I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of a, not, I guess, a tug, just to kind of help separate everything. Okay, and I can tell just by feel that we're a little bit thick right here with the fat. So I'm going to take just a little bit off. Just a little bit. You can feel it with your fingers. Over time, you get better at it. Okay. Now we're looking good. We're looking real good. Okay. Now we got quite a bit of fat right here, but I'm not going to go super crazy with this side. Okay. With this side, I want this side to be, relatively trimmed up when it comes to fat. I just want the majority of the fat on the other side. Obviously, we've got this section of fat right here. We know that going in. If you can go ahead and try and take this out if you want, but The problem with that is this kind of goes deep inside, and if you go real crazy on this, then what you're sacrificing is your shape. Okay, so then you end up with this big cavity right here. I don't like to do that. You can do that if you want, but I do not. Okay, so now we can kind of see right here what I was talking about, this line right here. And you can actually separate this if you wanted to. You could take this section right here, okay, this section, you could take this off and turn just this. Some people do this, I don't, but you could turn this into just burnt ends, and then you'd have an entire just flat section. Actually, I've got a little bit going on right here that I want off. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. Okay, just gonna take a second. It's only gonna take a second. I'm gonna leave that out for just a sec so we can talk about that. And I got a handle. Sometimes it's a good way to trim is to, pull something up and give yourself a little handle to pull apart as you're working the meat apart. Okay. I left this out so we could take a look at this. You can actually see here and kind of in here, you might even be able to tell as you're trimming this, that this is the connective tissue that we were talking about earlier, okay? The combination that you have here is meat, actual meat, you have fat, and then you have connective tissue. This right here is what we were talking about. If you don't have a proper render, or let's just say you wanted to just slice this dude up, create a slice out of this, put it in a pan and cook it up, you're gonna be really disappointed with that. It's harder than heck. It's worse than any rubber band you ever could think to chew on. It's real bad. That's the reason why this is such a cheap cut. Okay, so this guy is ready. This guy's ready for seasoning. Okay, so now we start with the mustard. I'm gonna start on the other side because when I put this on the grill, I'm going fat side up. I always go fat side up. Okay. Just kind of like that. This is just like before. Okay, nothing difficult here. Okay. You're not doing anything fancy or anything like that, so just slather it up. You're making a mess, that's okay. Okay, we're back with our seasoning. We already talked about our seasoning. I'm gonna start with the edges. All right, looking good. Okay, don't forget, guys, that you want to be liberal with your seasonings, especially with these big cuts of meat. Okay, we're not doing any injections on this. So the flavor, other than the meat itself and the render of the fat, which also counts as part of the flavor, the flavor as it relates to the seasoning, all you got is the outside for everything inside this meat, okay? So don't under season it. Do it right. Okay. And I'm just gonna, oh, mustard. You don't have to do mustard. I think I mentioned that on the last brisket. You don't have to do mustard. Some people just use water. Some people use nothing. Some people have their own concoction for using for what they use for a binder. It's really not that big of a deal. I prefer mustard. I like mustard, so that's what I use. It contributes to the flavor profile of the meat a little bit, but not much. The seasoning does most of the heavy lifting when it comes to that. I already hit most of the edges here. I just want to kind of make sure that I got this side of the edge, the very edge, before I do the top. Okay. Looking good. Okay, now just as a comment, just a side note, referring back to the trim, some people, and feel free to jump in the comments if you've got your own take on this, but some people out there in the trim would have removed this to have this even more uniform. I'm not going to do that. I think this is just fine for me, okay? For you, if that's your thing and you prefer this to be even more flat and more uniform, do it, do it. But I'm just gonna leave this, okay? This is gonna be just fine for me. We're ready to go out to the grill, guys. So let's go ahead and step out. This is gonna go on, just like before, it's gonna go on at 250 degrees. And we're gonna put the probe in, we're gonna monitor this, and then we're gonna see you back again at 165 degree internal temperature. All right, guys, let's go. All right, guys, we are ready. We're ready to cut. This guy is at 144 degrees. It's ready to come out. Let's take a look and see what we got. All right. Open this guy up. It's got an amazing color to it. If we open this up, you can see there's juice all over the place. That's why I got the jars here, okay? We're gonna keep the drippings. In the next episode, or the next segment of this episode, when we do our crock pot brisket, that's with all the trimmings, I'm gonna show you what we're doing with these drippings, okay? But for right now, we're gonna first rescue this guy out of here. And look at that. Take this guy out. Just let it drain a little bit. We want to keep all that juice right onto the cutting board here. This is the flat, remember, this is the point, okay? Now we've got all this liquid here. We're gonna keep this liquid. And it's hard to tell exactly how much liquid you're gonna end up with, so I like to have an additional jar just kind of standing by just in case. Okay, but here's what we're gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna pull this back just a little bit. I'm gonna put this jar inside this container just in case we make a mess, okay? Roll this up, make it a little easier on myself. Okay, do everything you can to set yourself up for success here. But we got this little gravy boat here. Actually, just in case, I'm gonna put this guy in here too. Okay, and we're gonna pour straight into this jar. And just as a side note, you'll notice that I'm choosing to use jars that are straight walled. This will make sense, yeah, okay. So now, that's kind of what I figured. This is a bigger brisket, so it's got more drippings. So we've got the additional jar just standing by. Okay, look at that. Okay, I'm gonna just wrinkle this guy up and get rid of this. Okay, you'll see a lot of people, especially on, cooking channels and barbecue and all that stuff, they will use this back on the already cut brisket. More than welcome to do that. But I like to save it separately, okay? So feel free to do either or, but I save this separately for what's coming up, the next segment, okay? So all I have here now is it just sitting on a plate, okay? And these lids, there's really no need to screw them on, but it just needs to make it to the fridge, okay? Just needs to make it to the fridge. They're just setting on there. If you're gonna save this for a good period of time, go ahead and put the screws on if you want to. But for right now, I'm gonna go, after this segment, I'm gonna go straight into the next segment, and I'm gonna use this after it's already chilled. Okay, so for right now, we're just gonna leave that right here. Let's get to cooking, or cutting. We already cooked. Okay, now we can see this has got an amazing jiggle to it. This is exactly what we're after here. Okay, so we're gonna start cutting. This is going to be just wonderfully tender, not overcooked, because like I said before, it's easy to overcook a brisket in an attempt to break down the connective tissue inside and render down the fat. But if you're patient and you do this right, this is what you end up with, guys. This is what you end up with, okay? We got the smoke ring here, just like what you would expect, okay? It drapes over the finger, but it doesn't fall apart. But look at that, look how tender it is. And when you go to pull this apart, it is effortless. This is what we're after here, guys, okay? So let's go ahead and continue cutting. I got a really sharp blade here. Always make sure that your knives are sharp, guys. It's not only for, you know, everybody says safety-wise, it's super important to do, and that much is obvious, okay? Anybody who's been in a kitchen and has worked with a dull knife, it can be really punishing and sort of scary, kind of nerve-wracking, depending on what you're trying to do. But when you're doing something like this is really delicate meat now, okay? Because we took the time to cook this thing the right way, this is really delicate meat. So you'll notice I'm taking several passes as I'm going down into the meat. I'm letting the blade do the work, and I'm not pushing in and really hacking away. This is really, really delicate meat, as we already kind of illustrated here, okay? So sharp knife, and then take your time, okay? So we're still in the flat right now. We're almost ready to go into, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and move this because this table's moving around a little bit. Okay, just off to the side. That'll make it to the fridge. Okay. We're still continuing in the flat. Okay. Now I'm going to take this piece out to show you where we are. Okay. You can see this middle section right here. Now we're starting to transition into the point side, which means we're going to turn this brisket 90 degrees. Okay. Any barbecue YouTube channel worth their salt is going to say the exact same thing. Okay, there's nothing revolutionary about this. It has to do with the grain of the meat. Okay, the grain of the meat, which is one of the sections of the meat, runs in that direction, and primarily this, the point side, runs in this direction. Okay, so now we're going to turn the meat. And also, I'm going to take this great big old section right here off by itself, and I'm going to cut this up. Okay, these are burnt ends. It's on the end, right? There are other different versions of burnt ends out there. I'm not saying that that's not burnt ends too, it is. But this is what everybody wants, okay? And this is the reason why. If we look in here, you can see a really good distribution of fat, almost Wagyu-like, okay? So that's a really, really nice bite, okay? I'm gonna continue on here. I get a couple more cuts in here. Okay, and because this is such a big brisket, we can really see. Okay, now I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to take one of these sections back out. This is from the flat. This is from the point. Okay, you can really see how different this is. See how different that is? All this connective tissue and all this fat is all rendered down really well. The connective tissue is rendered down really well. This is just absolutely amazing to eat if you're into that. If you're not into fat, if you're into leaner cuts, then go for the flat. Just go for this section right here. Okay, this brisket is so tender that you can very easily, if you're not into fat, not everybody's into fat, okay? Not everybody's into fat, and that's okay. But if you're not into fat, you can tell that you barely even have to use a fork to remove what you don't want. And then you've got nothing but just amazing meat, okay? So let's continue on. This is all looking really good. Okay, let the knife do the work. Don't get too excited and start jerking the knife around and start tearing the meat apart. You did all this work for this meat, and even, you just saw there, even with me being easy with the meat, it still happens, okay? So take the time, don't be in a rush. You just put in 12 hours of work on this meat. Take the time to slow down, cut it right. Okay. Be real delicate, especially around the bark. The bark is the outside. Okay. Move this out of the way so I've got some elbow space here. Okay. Almost at the other burnt end here. Okay, and I'm going to call the remainder of this burn end. Right here, I've got a big lump of fat right here. Really no meat there. I'll just cut that guy off, set it aside. That's it, guys. We are done. We are done with this guy. Look at that. Okay. You cook your brisket like this. Oh, we got quite a bit of fat here too. So what you could do, again, just like what I did here, is just kind of remove that. Okay. These bigger hunks of meat, if we open this up, are going to have a larger center section of fat. Sometimes people really like it, sometimes people don't, but leave it up to them. Okay, don't go real crazy with your knife and start cutting a whole bunch of stuff away. Leave it up to the person that you're serving. Okay, so this is done and ready to get put away. Okay, on the next segment coming up, we're doing crock pot. All right, we'll see you there. Brisket number 3. Okay, we're here. We've done the 2 smoked briskets, and now what we have is the trim. That's brisket number 3, is the trim from the previous 2 smoked briskets. Okay, so you remember last time we had these drippings. Now we're gonna go through what to do with this, because we're gonna use this over here. Okay, so we can see that we've got a separation now, here and here. This is fat, and this is all collagen. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna make a cut at a slight diagonal. Okay, and the reason why is because it's much easier for that fat to come out if it's at a diagonal. I'm gonna do the exact same thing again here. Just like that. And then this just lifts straight out. Okay? So I'm gonna put the that in its own jar. And if you remember back to the first episode, I mentioned this. This is what I use to season my grill. I use this to cook eggs. I use this for all manner of different things that either I want or I don't mind the additional flavor from the smoked brisket, because remember, this came from the smoked brisket. Now, here's what I'm going to show you, okay? You notice this is not water. See the jiggle there, okay? This is from all the connective tissue in that brisket. There's a lot of flavor in here, okay? Because it's from the drippings and all that stuff, there's seasoning in here, there's the collagen in here, okay? So we're gonna use this. I'm gonna set this aside for just a second. Let's get the rest of this fat out of here, okay? I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Cut at a diagonal. Cut at a diagonal. Okay. And then same thing, I'm gonna take a fork and it'll lift straight out, no fuss, because of that angle that we cut this, okay? I'm just gonna give this a little pressure to give myself some room. Now what I'm gonna do with this little jar, I'm just gonna set that out in the sun for a few minutes and let it kind of liquefy again. And then it'll turn back into a solid when I put it in the fridge, okay? So this we're done with. I'm gonna set this outside, just set a lid on top of it, make sure no bugs or anything like that get in there. Let this melt down a little bit, then I'll put it back in the fridge, it'll solidify. So now we have our 2 containers of this collagen, okay? Now we're ready to cook, okay? I've got my crock pots out. This is real simple, guys. We're gonna take the trim, dump it in, okay? I've got my seasoning. This is only a half a tablespoon of garlic salt, half a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, and that's it. Because remember, we've got some seasoning and lots of flavor in here too already. So we're not going real crazy here. Now I'm gonna dump in, okay, it looks like a great big kind of jello jiggler. Kind of like that, okay? And I'm just gonna break this up a little bit. Give it a little bit of a stir. Okay. This is kind of what we end up with. This is gonna be awesome when it's done, okay? Okay, so there's that. Now the fat. This is how we get our white tallow, our jars of white fat that we can use for just about anything. And because there's no meat in this fat, this is just fat by itself, it'll keep for a really long time, okay? So I'm gonna take this guy out, into the crock pot it goes. Okay, I'm just gonna press this down with the bag. Yeah, just pressing it down, and that's done. It's that simple. Okay, this one's an easy one. Okay, so both of these crock pots, they're gonna get set on high for several hours, and we're gonna check back in after just a bit. We'll see you then. All right, guys, 6 hours in, and this beef is ready, okay? We can see over here, if we look at our fat, we could strain this off right now, but I think we could do just a little bit better. So we're gonna give this maybe another hour or so and see what we got. Right now, this beef is ready to go, okay? We're gonna go ahead and look at that. We're gonna go ahead and strain this off. Now this is at the point that it could be very easily shredded up. You can make some incredible sandwiches with this stuff, and I have. It's awesome. It's got an awesome color to it. In part, you can see the, if you remember the color of the collagen drippings that we put in here, it's very similar to what the color of the meat is right now. It's kind of taken on that color. And a lot of that has to do with the seasoning that was in the collagen, okay? So if we look at this, it is just unbelievably tender, okay? I'm gonna grab my towel real quick, because the next thing that we're gonna do, this is done, this is ready to get put away, okay? Now, we've got all this juice. I don't toss the juice. This makes a really, really good stock that you can use later. So I'm gonna pour this off into my container here. Okay, carefully. Look at that. Awesome. Okay. And now we just seal this up, and I'm gonna put this in the freezer for the next time I'm gonna make like a stew or something like that. This makes an awesome stock for that. Okay, so I'm gonna put this away. I'm gonna put this away. The fat over here, I'm gonna give it another hour, and then we'll be right back to show you what we do with that. Let's go. All right, guys, we made it to the end. 7 hours that this crock pot has been going, and as far as I'm concerned, it's ready. You could let this go longer if you really wanted to, but I'm not going to. This is plenty good enough for me. Okay, so here's my setup. I've got a strainer here, ladle, spoon. I just got a glass here just to set this handle just kind of up in the air. Use what you got, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start to ladle this over the strainer and into the jar. Okay, I'm not gonna be in a rush. This isn't gonna take all that long anyway. Okay, so that jar is ready. I'm gonna go ahead and dump the contents of my strainer into this bowl that I've got here. I've got a little bit left. Not much though. Okay, so I'm gonna put the jar, this guy's ready to go. I'm gonna put the lid on this jar. You can see it's got kind of a yellow, it looks yellow. When this goes in the fridge, when it comes out of the fridge, when it comes out of the freezer, it's gonna be white. Okay, it's gonna be like snow white, okay? So now, I'm gonna do the same thing, except for now, I'm gonna start to get rid of some of these bigger pieces, okay? So I'm gonna put these bigger pieces just kind of straight into the bowl, strain this off. This is kind of why I was saying before, you can see this is identifiable fat. Some people will let this go until these pieces of fat are just cracklings. And that's very much what I did when I got my bear, and I rendered down my bear fat to get oil out of bear fat, because I wanted to extract every little bit that I possibly could from that bear. It's not like I get a bear every season, so I really wanted to make the most and get everything that I possibly could out of it. But I make brisket pretty often, so this is perfectly acceptable. Okay, we're gonna be getting a lot more tallow in the future, so I'm not worried about it at all. Okay, these last little bits, there's really not much here. Now I'm gonna start to a little bit of a back and forth at this point between getting bits and then getting the last of this fat. Okay, so there's that. I got my pot holder here. I'm gonna go ahead and tip this back so that I can get the last little bit out of here that I can. Really not a whole lot left. Okay, this kind of goes without saying, but while I was cooking in these crock pots, I came back every 1 to 2 hours, and I gave these all a stir. Make sure you check in on whatever it is you're working on. Okay, so this is done, guys. This is all done. Lid on. And these two are going in the fridge and probably in the freezer. You put these in the freezer, they'll last an indefinite amount of time, okay? So make sure and give this a try if you're a brisket cooker like I am. All right. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, it is pretty comprehensive, but if you do it this way, you end up not only with an incredible brisket for your friends and family and yourself, but you end up with everything that comes out of the trimmings too, and that includes all the drippings that you can use for all different manner of things. You can cook your eggs with it and all that kind of stuff, and then the just white tallow that you can keep in the freezer. I keep most of mine in the freezer, and what I use is if I'm going to do a batch of French fries or something like that, that's what I use to cook that. In our house, we removed vegetable oil and seed oils and all that stuff, not for the reasons that everybody else kind of talks about, that it's evil and it's this and that, but I have found over time that using animal fat, it just digests better in my stomach. So it's a lot easier for me to eat. Your body already knows what to do with it. Having said that, if you are going to consume brisket, which I do, you need to plan accordingly with your diet, because it is a higher fat meat. So, you need to pull way back on the sugar and make sure that you're not eating brisket all the time. Just plan accordingly, okay? So on the next episode, we're going to be talking about pulled pork. I do pulled pork just a little bit differently than most other people you're going to find. particularly with the second part of the cook. So I hope you enjoy that one. Just as a reminder, the first episode, the episode previous to this one, that episode has a full breakdown of all the equipment that I'm using and all that. I got a link down in the show notes, so you can go back to that first episode if you got any question what I'm using or any of that. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.